everyone, welcome back to the Environmental Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Aaron.
Hi, guys.
So, Aaron, what have you been reading, watching? How's your week been?
My week's been good. I've been watching a bunch of random, trying to clean up my kind of Netflix continue watching list. Because sometimes we start watching movies for, let's say, 10 to 30 minutes, and then I just say, this is not for me. But then it's kind of a constant reminder because Netflix always displays that little list. And I'm like, oh man, I never finished Glee. So I finished watching Dune, David Lynch's Dune, which was quite disappointing. I was expecting something really trippy and sci-fi and hard to comprehend, and I just got this kind of mess of visual effects. Sandy mess.
Dusty mess.
So I guess we'll have to wait until the next Dune comes out for a good adaptation of that.
Yeah.
And I also finished watching Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, which was very heavy and not the kind of movie I like to watch at midnight by myself. But
we started that movie together, then I said I refused to finish this because it was just too much for me.
Yeah, you ditched. What about you?
I've been reading a lot more because I started The Odyssey last summer, and then for some reason it took me like a year to read. I read other books in between, but it just, maybe it was like I didn't want it to end. I didn't want to have to think about choosing my next book. I don't know what it was. But I finished The Odyssey, and then I started reading books like they're going out of style. So I read Screwtape Letters, David and Goliath, and now I just started Girl with a Pearl Earring, which is really good. So yeah, I've been mainly reading, haven't watched too much.
How did you like The Odyssey?
The Odyssey was fantastic. It was a great story. The ending was cool because we rarely, or the books that I read at least, the climax is often at the very end, but this was about 2/3 of the way, and there was a really great resolution where he comes back to Ithaca and just purges it of all of the...
Just shoot some arrows through some axes.
Yeah, that's what he does. And reclaims his wife, who was faithful to him, and I really liked Penelope as a character too because she's pretty cool. I mean, to wait like 20 years and be like, no, he's coming home, even though everyone else was like, no, he's dead.
When he himself is quite the infidel.
Yes.
On his travels.
He is. But The Odyssey was fantastic. I think I might read the Iliad at some point in the next year.
Have you been listening to any music?
I've been listening to a bit of music, usually just like the classics, some Bon Iver. I've been listening to a bit of, there's a new like Sufjan Stevens and some new songs. A lot of people are releasing singles right now, so a lot of those.
Where do you listen to them?
I listen to them on Apple Music, which is a really cool streaming service.
Cool, I've never heard of it.
I think you have heard of it, Aaron.
What did you call it? Apple Music?
Is that what it's called? Apple Music?
What's Apple? I guess over the next episode we'll find out because we did some research and we're going to have a cool discussion about everyone's favorite consumer-friendly tech giant, Apple Inc.
Great.
We're coming straight off the back of our Ideal City series in which we design like our perfect utopia, basically. Mm-hmm. And we thought going from that to Apple, which often presents something like that in its marketing and its product, would be a cool transition.
Yeah, a good next step.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the history, but mostly about the design, Apple's influence, and kind of its role in society and, well, our own experience with it, but also what we think it could be, what we think it does right and wrong, and just, pretending to be CEOs, basically.
Yeah, sounds fun. Neither of us are really Apple junkies.
No, but we're both distant admirers.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Like, we watched the keynotes, or I watched the keynotes, or at least some of the highlights, and I'd say that we both get inspired by them.
Yeah, their like business philosophy is probably the closest in line with what I hope to someday mimic.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
So you did some of the history.
I did.
So let's get that out of the way.
So Apple was founded in 1976 by Steve Jobs and two of his buddies. One of them dropped out about 5 days in, sold his shares for $800. Probably has a few regrets, but I don't know what he went on to do.
Yeah.
And then over the next 10 or so years, Steve Jobs and his partner just started making computers that were consumer friendly because up until 1976, computers were like the size of a room. And then they started, their first thing was just called the Apple, and it was basically this compact hard drive. So it was technically a computer, but it didn't come with a screen, a keyboard, a mouse, or Like, you couldn't use it unless you hooked it up to these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it sold pretty well, enough for them to do another model, and then they just kept going until Steve Jobs was kicked out of the company. But, like, I didn't want to go too much into the history, so I didn't actually do too much up until that point.
I remember that vaguely from watching the Michael Fassbender biopic, Steve Jobs,
okay.
which is a really good movie, but I don't think it's it's not exactly a documentary, but still I'd recommend it.
Cool. And my favorite part about Apple's, like, kind of early history was when they started selling the Macintosh computers, which are like the Macs that we kind of know today. The marketing was the computer for the rest of us, which I think is kind of, well, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but
Go for it.
That's my hope with the podcast, is like environmentalism for the rest of us, not the really extreme, like, I don't know. Being extremely environmental is good, obviously.
That's a cool comparison
but it's
to make, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of my goal as a environmentalist.
Because, let's say this was, 70s, 80s?
Mm-hmm.
Computers were kind of just becoming this nerdy Silicon Valley thing.
Yeah.
And they weren't really consumer friendly or cool.
Right.
So I guess that's what Apple did.
Yeah, they made them cool. They made you want to buy it. Because before, people were like, oh, we don't need...
We're not one of those people.
Yeah.
And environmentalism might be the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
Without realizing that it can be in every house and every life.
Mm-hmm.
Much like Apple.
So true.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm going to start with a question now.
Okay.
Why do you think Apple isn't making everything under the sun? Like, why aren't there Apple... I know there's Apple TVs, but, like, why aren't there Apple heaters, like, home systems? Like, why isn't it just as pervasive as, like, maybe Samsung is with its speakers, its, like, vacuum cleaners?
Well, I think Apple cares about quality control. So the fewer products they put out, the more time, thought, effort, design they can put into them. It also makes it clearer for the consumer. Like, you and I could probably name right now almost all the Apple products, but nowhere close to the Samsung products. And part of that is just their consistent branding and kind of how big a cultural moment it is every time a new Apple product is released or announced. But another part is just that they keep it so few.
I watched a video in preparation for this, and it laid out, it's this video series, and it's called, like, the philosophy of, and then, like, a company. And it said the philosophy of Apple would be transparent as possible, like, make the technology as easy to use and as just, like, you know what's in it, basically.
Intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive. The second one is being extremely focused, which is kind of about that question I just asked.
Yeah. When you said you know what's in it, did you mean the actual hardware, or you know what's in the software? You know how to use it?
You know what I mean? Like, you get an Apple, like, you've used your iPod. Like, when we had iPods and we didn't have iPads or anything. But then you get your iPhone and you know what's in it. Like, you know what you're getting, I guess, is what I mean.
Oh, you mean you know what's on it?
What's on it, yeah. But also, like, you know the specs, kind of, because they make a big deal out of it.
Okay, right.
It's like, oh, now the beveled design and, like, oh, the buttons are gone. Like, you just kind of know...
Oh, yeah, okay, I know what you mean.
How it all works. But then you get your... Like, we both have PCs, and it's like, you don't even know what you can do on it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's more intuition would be the difference.
For Apple, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they designed for 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds.
I think 4-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah.
What was your first, like, when you were thinking about doing this episode, what was the main point that stuck out you wanted to discuss?
Well, I think it was after we just watched that WWDC thing for 2020, where they showed, like, the new, it was all software focused.
Yeah.
So it showed a new iOS, a new Mac OS, Big Sur. We just rewatched it yesterday.
Yes.
Because the reveal was so cool.
Yeah.
And also, I suppose it's been a pent-up thing because we both, like you mentioned, have Windows PCs, and they are consistent sources of frustration, at least for me.
Indeed. I really like my computer.
Right.
But it's... Yeah, I feel like if I got a Mac, it would just make my life...
The hardware on yours is really nice.
It's pretty nice, and it's quick, but it still lacks a few things where it's like, I should be able to just take a screenshot. But, like, you can't. And know how, yeah. And, like, I want to, like, mark things up sometimes, and I'm like, I don't want to have to download an extra, like, third party. I don't know what it is.
Well, we'll get into that with PCs versus Macs. So it was partly that. It was partly the keynote speeches which we watch, which I just find this really cool, unique cultural space they occupy, which is kind of this blending of product and design and technology and science in a way which, through history, nothing has ever really done before, I don't think. I think the Apple keynote is a uniquely modern phenomena. Not that it's necessarily all bad or all good, but it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And it feels really new. The other day I was driving, and on the radio they were talking about the presenter. It was just like a music station, but they do like news segments, and they were talking about how Walmart has made all these new announcements about how in the next few years they're going to be changing this and integrating new technologies. And the announcer sounded really excited for it. She was like, this is going to be really cool. This is going to change the Walmart shopping experience. And I just thought, what a strange world we live in. And I mentioned it to you and you shared a similar experience you had, that we're just hooked up to this mass media which tells us what these giant corporations are doing, and sometimes we're excited about it. It's strange. And
it's very dystopian, like futuristic. I don't know what you would say, but it's like the kind of things that you would read in a story and be like, that's crazy. Everyone across the world knows what this brand is and like buys from it, but that's literally what we do with Walmart. And Amazon.
Yeah, and you can kind of chuckle at the woman who's excited about these new Walmart changes, like they're having like tap on their debit Interact machines. But pretty much everyone is like that for at least one company or one industry rather, which leads me to think it's not all bad.
Okay.
So that's what I wanted to discuss first and foremost. I think just the space they occupy, how it blends design and science, and whether it's good or bad for society that we all kind of follow it with bated breath. Because I know when in September or so, I don't know how it's happening with the virus, but whenever Apple announces their next iPhone, I'll be interested, even though I probably won't buy it.
Yeah. I think the thing about Apple, the reason that I don't have a immediately negative reaction the way I would if everyone was this excited every time Amazon announced a new like delivery system or something. I have this weird trust in Apple that they actually have
people's best interests at heart.
Yeah.
And that they actually want to disseminate good design and make people's lives better.
Yeah. And I know that's not true because they had like for a while like their phones were set to
planned obsolescence.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the word for it.
Well, they're famously anti-consumer.
Yes. But the thing about Apple is I trust them to know what we want before we know it, and like it's kind of been proven.
That's so what a strange sentence.
Like everyone says like they'd be like, no, like Apple Watches are dumb, but I know within the next couple of years everyone's gonna have some kind of a wearable technology.
Right.
And the cool thing about Apple is a quote I saw from one of their CEOs, and it was along the lines of saying every product we make the purpose is to make our last product obsolete and unnecessary. So like the purpose of the watch is to make you not have to use your phone. The purpose of your phone is to make you not have to use your iPad.
Right.
And so on, just to make technology like integrated into our lives, which is like kind of scary, but also they want to like get out of the way and just let you have a better like experience, I guess.
As long as it's an Apple experience.
Yeah.
And that you pay them like $1,000 for it.
Yeah, their stuff's really expensive.
That's part of the exclusivity, or it's most of it even.
That's true. I guess if Apple was really accessible, then maybe it would be less cool, but I think it's just so easy. Like, I don't know what it is. And they're also like pretty environmental, aren't they?
Yeah, we can talk about their environmentalism a little bit. We're kind of jumping all over the place. But we saw that they plan to be completely zero carbon in 10 years. They're practically zero carbon right now when it comes to, I think, manufacturing and the energy which they use for all their headquarters.
But right now they want to try and make the product lifespan cyclical. So it's like you dispose of your iPhone maybe at the iPhone store and they recycle it, so there's just no impact at all. So you're not throwing out your iPhone and they're not wasting water when they're producing. And yeah, they want to be carbon neutral by 2023. And right now they almost are. Do you think that over time Apple will become even more integrated into like how communities are built? Like, do you think it's going to keep growing or just stay as like a consumer thing? I feel like Apple has this plan to have like Apple cities and stuff.
I don't know about that, because what you just said was making it more integrated and the products seem to be getting smaller, not bigger.
True.
Leaning more wearable. We can talk about that in relation to like our own philosophy of technology and how it should be used by consumers. Because in theory, the Apple Watch is like exactly what we're against. Oh, I wanted to talk about this thing as well. You mentioned the Apple Watch and how their products always replace one another and stuff. and how you trust them and how you trust them to know what we want before we know we want it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention that with very few exceptions, Apple's products are not that innovative. Like the watch, there were tons of smartwatches before that. And the iPad, I think there were tablets before that. And the AirPods as well.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think it's something like when they release the product, that almost authenticates it in the eye of the consumer. It makes smartwatches legit, or it makes Bluetooth headphones, wireless Bluetooth headphones legit.
Yeah, very good point.
It's like a stamp of approval. It's like, okay, if Apple has made one, then we know that that's the future. That's how it feels anyway. Because other companies are so much more experimental. Apple's really kind of safe now with its releases.
But I feel like in the beginning, maybe they were the ones pushing the envelope, but now they kind of leave it up to other companies and they package it in a way that we're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. But
Who knew?
Another thing along those lines was what you just said. Apple kind of packages the product in a way which is more expensive, looks nicer, and generally more exciting, even if not the most technologically innovative. And people kind of laugh at people who buy those or buy those day one or are early adopters or get excited about it. But I was saying yesterday, I don't think you can blame people. It's like we want products which look nice.
Yeah, and that we know will be easy to use.
Yeah, easy to use is a big thing. No one wants to waste time like rearranging the home screen on their phone or learning how to do something on their phone. Like, I just don't want to do that because phones should be tools. They shouldn't be things to which we kind of pour our lives learning. All technology, I would say, in general.
Yeah, it's like if you had to assemble your hammer every time you had to use it, people would be like, eh. But
even if it's a stronger hammer, people would be like, no, I'll just take the weaker one because it's easier to use.
Yeah.
Especially if it looks cool. So that's kind of why Apple succeeds, I think.
I think so. Their marketing strategies are out of this world.
Yeah.
Even the language they use when describing things. Like, they name all their softwares after, like, mountains and, like, epic places in California. And they're, I don't know.
They're selling you a lifestyle. They're selling you a vision, and they're selling you a life which you probably don't have. And if you don't have it, you definitely won't have it just by buying an iMac.
Yeah.
But they're selling you the fact that, you'll be this successful, cool artist living in a studio with an iMac and, like, stubble.
Yeah. I feel like on multiple occasions in the keynote we recently watched, they said for, like, the traveler, for someone, like, who's always jetting around and moving, and it's like, whoa, I can be that if I have my Mac Air.
And even, let's say, when they're showing off the new software, and they were showing off an iMac, or a MacBook, I think, and they opened the Photos program, and they're like, this is beautiful, look. And there's all these incredible travel photos, family photos, photos of someone living some crazy life, art. And it makes you think, man, I want that Photos program, because you want the photos. But just buying the computer won't give you those.
Yeah,
but Apple would have you believe that, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not like it's even subtle that they're trying to sell you this perfect life, but it's just so effective.
It's the same with the phone reveals. They're showing off all these features and all this stuff, and it's like, you can use it for this, you can communicate with your technology startup, you can, do your graphic design on it, and it's like, everyone's just going to use this for Instagram.
Yeah.
And with the Macs, it's like most of the kids buying this are just going to use it for Safari.
Yeah.
And almost nothing else. But because it comes loaded with so much other stuff, people think that will make them use it, I guess. But
just like when people buy gym memberships.
It's exactly like that. Gym memberships sell you like a body and health. And Apple does the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I think one good example of their marketing, as well as the environmentalism you were talking about earlier, and like the mix of design and science I was mentioning earlier, is their headquarters. Because we watched their video unveiling it, which came out a few years ago, and now the thing's fully built. But when they released this video, it's just kind of concepts for it.
Yeah.
Which is called?
It's just called like the spaceship or something.
No, it's called Apple Park.
Apple Park, yes.
And it's this big ring building in California. It looks really cool. It has a bunch of trees and glass and wood. Very Apple-y.
Yeah.
How else can you describe it?
I don't know how else. Like, it looks like an Apple building. And like every single thing they did, like the windows, like this new technology to like trap heat and like repel heat when it's cold. And like 80% of the property is trees. A big chunk of this 4-minute video was devoted to the head arborist.
Yeah, talking about
the types
trees.
of trees.
So I think that's cool and impressive, and those videos inspire me. I know everyone's so cynical. They'd be like, oh, here's Apple with their multi-billion-dollar new whatever. But I don't know. I think it's cool to learn about those things. It's cool to hear about it. It's like this could filter down to people one day.
Exactly. And it's like when people are negative about NASA, which I sometimes am. I'm like, why are we spending money on space exploration? But like, then cool technologies come out of it. Like...
Or design.
Yeah.
Like Apple consistently shifts high art as well as consumer design, no doubt about it. Product design, industrial design. I saw a quote by Steve Jobs who said that if I have a kindred spirit at Apple, it's Johnny Ive, who's like the famous lead designer for a ton of their products. iPhone, MacBook, AirPods, just like he has a list, so let's say for the last 20 years, and his name's just all over pretty much everything they've done. And he basically pioneered that style of ultra minimalist, sleek, mostly white and grey and futuristic, which we saw a ton of companies adopt. And now it's more like gradients and blurred colors and things, which I see a lot of other tech companies adopt. And contrast it with something like Google or Samsung, and their attempts at design just kind of seem bad in comparison.
Yeah.
But it's not even the fact that they're maybe objectively bad, because I don't think they usually are. It's the fact that they don't have the cultural cash of Apple. So the things they do don't just seem instantly cool like the things Apple does.
And kind of going back to the exclusive nature of Apple, Google can make a really sleek minimalist phone, but it's just like, I have Google, like Google Home. Like they have so many other things and it doesn't all match, and it's kind of like a cheap label in comparison to Apple.
So that was very consumerist.
Yeah.
You're talking about the logo.
Yeah.
The branding. Yeah, there's definitely a consumerist slant to Apple, which I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows about this. Everyone knows that people are mostly lining up for the status symbol of the logo.
100%. Yeah.
The logo, the vision.
They want their things to be recognizable. They want to be able to wear like a Patagonia sweater or have an iPhone and you don't even see the logo, but you know what it is.
Yeah. You want to talk about the consumerism a little bit more? Because I think that's really important. And it's important to know that we're not praising that.
No.
Because we're mostly for degrowth, as ironic as this episode seems, where we're mostly like praising the biggest corporation. It's the world's first $1 trillion tech company. So I think we could talk about the ethics of that later, but we're not so much
saying it inspires us to take approaches, because the thing is, as we're trying to sell degrowth to people, which is essentially what we're doing.
Okay.
We're trying to sell the concept to them.
Okay.
Market it to them, pitch it to them. We want to take some of the things that Apple are doing and apply it to this environmental movement, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because they, as I said, like they throw things in that people don't think they want. They listen to the consumers, but they don't necessarily follow through with that if they think something is more in line with their vision. They're very
stubborn.
Very stubborn. They stick to their morals, their values, I think, for the most part.
Well, most of their values are making money.
Yeah.
But they stick to building this vision.
Yeah.
We can say that.
Maybe I should talk more about Steve Jobs instead of...
Like, they're quite predictable.
Apple. Yes. Quite predictable. And I don't know what it is.
Okay, I'll ask you the question.
Okay.
Does it matter to you if your phone or laptop has an Apple logo on it? Do you feel better about that?
Could I have like an Apple phone without the logo?
You tell me. Would that be as good?
For me, yeah.
I agree. I think that's the difference.
I wish I could have that sometimes.
Yeah.
I like how they work. Sorry.
Yeah, if we need a phone, I'd like it to be an Apple one because they work better or easier, simple as. But like, I don't care about. I really feel not very consumerist. I think I was when I was younger, as most kids are really, because you don't really know better and you just want to be cool.
Yeah.
And popularity in kids especially, but also with adults, comes from having that logo, be it Apple or Nike or whatever. But now I'm like, no, I like those products from those companies typically because it's not just a status symbol, but usually a symbol of all these other things. It works better, it's easier, it looks nice, but it's not about the logo or it or people knowing that it's from the company. I really couldn't care less about that.
So that's more, we need to get people to transition into that mindset.
Yeah,
when they're consuming
it's basically
things.
viewing it as tools and not as a luxury. That's what it
Yes.
is.
Because if, say I was buying a piece of clothing and I wanted to get a really good, say like brand name.
Yeah.
Usually, like my justification would be, I want the better quality.
Yeah, you want it to last longer.
But we just need to get people
nicer.
to shift to that. Say, oh, I can get this good quality backpack from my local boutique instead of getting it from Nike because it's actually better quality. Like, I don't know. It's just getting people to shift mindsets.
Right.
Do you think Apple, like, what role would Apple play in the degrown world? Because we often talk about, like, the car companies will be the ones who are manufacturing parts for trains and running railway companies, maybe. What would Apple do? Because I think it could keep inspiring us.
Yeah, keep inspiring us. That's the main thing. It sounds so kind of dreamer and pretentious and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But so does everything Apple puts out.
Yeah.
To cynical people. But I love them for that because it's so idealistic.
Yeah.
It's so removed from reality. You know, it's this kind of rich Californian life where all you do is make art and travel, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. I don't know in specifics. Let me think about it. Because I had listed that we could go through the products and basically say what was good and bad about each one and what we would keep if we were CEOs for a day or for a year, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, let me think about it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we mentioned planned obsolescence and how that's really bad. Maybe we could talk about some other bad stuff that Apple does.
Okay.
Privacy. Do we think they're as invasive and treacherous as a Facebook or a TikTok when it comes to collecting data?
I think they know everything about me. Like,
Right.
I don't know, like they know my music taste, they know what I watch on YouTube. I feel like they probably collect a ton of data.
Yeah.
Because that's probably how they know how to like do these things
Mm-hmm.
in advance. Like they know, okay, wearable technology is on the rise. We need to make Apple Watches have a heart meter in them. We need to
I feel like that might just be really good market analytics.
Could be.
I don't think they're as deceitful as Facebook. You mentioned earlier that you have this kind of implicit trust in them.
Yeah.
And I do too, but that might just be the brand they've cultivated.
Yeah.
But also, just in all their recent press releases and announcements, they typically emphasize how little data they're collecting and how transparent they are and all this stuff. And I know that you shouldn't trust big companies when they say that, but for some reason I do.
I don't know, like I have no issue with people like stealing my data, I guess.
Wow.
And so I don't think about it. But like maybe Apple doesn't. Because I guess their suggested music is usually pretty garbage. So maybe they're actually not listening to what I'm listening to.
That's true.
So I don't want, like I'm listening to alternative, I don't want Billie Eilish.
She's alternative, you know that.
Okay, I need to think of a better example. One of those like indie baby singers.
Favorite app? Go.
Apple Music.
You like that app?
It's pretty much the only app I use.
I tried Spotify, and I really don't like it. And people talk about it, but one, it's ugly with like that black and green.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a gamer aesthetic. And two, it's just hard to get around. I find Apple Music really very, very easy.
I thought about using Spotify because people said the suggested music is better and you can listen to your podcast in there.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day when I was listening to a podcast, because on Apple Music I often use the play next feature, so you can set up like a line of songs and then not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I want to go listen to a bunch of songs and then hit play next on a podcast, but you can't do that because the apps are separate.
I feel like they'll integrate those two.
They were integrated and then they separated them.
Oh.
Because they were both in iTunes. But then one became Apple Music and one became Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
But I think you should just be able to do it from the separate apps.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to revamp the podcast app at some point anyway because it's not very good.
Yeah, like you can't actually see like reviews and stuff. Like if you are trying to find a podcast, and, like
it's tough.
It's kind of hard. Yeah. What's your favorite app?
Apple app?
Yeah.
I like Safari. It gets out the way.
True.
Which might sound like a dumb choice, but every time I use Google Chrome or any kind of mobile app, browser app, it tries to connect you with the desktop app all the time. It's like, oh, you have this here, get this, and I find Google Chrome tries to do too much. It's like, get out of the way. I don't care about all these features and things.
True.
I like Safari because it's just kind of a browser. It's just bare bones. So I guess I'll say that.
Cool.
One thing I wanted to say, going back to this kind of idea of the technology showcase, which is them on a stage giving a keynote, popularized by, or made iconic, I would say, by Steve Jobs, but continued by his successors. So I had this question. Is what Apple does art? I know it's product. I know it's technology, but is it art?
I think so. When you say that, the first thing that pops into my mind is like someday there's going to be a AirPod sculpture.
Yeah.
That's like famous because it's a cool design. Like it's a cool little like.
I don't like the design for the AirPods though, but I know one day I will.
Yeah. You know what I mean though. They're just like a little swoosh, and like the phone, like they're just so nice. I love how they look.
Okay.
I know I'm like raving as if I love Apple, and like I have an iPhone from like almost 10 years ago. Like I'm not.
Yeah, we're not fanboys and girls by any means.
Yeah.
In fact, we're usually pretty critical of them. But idea-wise, there just aren't many institutions putting out what Apple puts out.
Yeah.
Certainly not governments.
You're right.
You know, how many governments are pledging to go zero carbon and we actually believe them?
Yeah.
Pretty much none.
Very good point.
Even though I think it would be easier for them to.
I think so.
Because
how many governments are trying to sell you like an idea of a more artful life?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they're branding it. It's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
But if we could be that, but without the branding, that'd be cool.
Pretty sweet.
So I think that's something when you said, what would Apple be in the ideal world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, still inspiring people, but it would just not have that consumeristic ugliness to it. I think the two can be separable.
I think so. And I think you can want to help more and more people without wanting to make more and more money.
On the topic of art, because I was questioning it as well, because someone might say, how can it be art when it's so kind of cynical and designed just to make money? I saw this quote by Georgia O'Keeffe, which says, an artist is someone who fills space in a beautiful way. And I was like, Apple does that.
They do.
No matter what the motive is, you know, they do that because they have cool engineers and designers and stuff. When I was thinking about how unique the keynotes and the conferences and the presentations are historically, trying to find equivalents or comparisons, and it's kind of like what I always hear people talk about, the 18th century French salons.
Okay.
You know, like the Impressionists were showcased in 19th century, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like all the cities you could come and see, like, wow, this is where aesthetics are going.
Mm-hmm.
This is where art is going. It's kind of like that when you walk into an Apple store or when you watch one of their conferences.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, they're showing us this is what every company will be doing for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
This is what all their branding will look like, and this is what we'll be effectively surrounded by.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. The thing with the salons is like sometimes there would be a piece that everyone like booed. They'd be like boo, and then they would like take it and like put it in the back room because it was not good. And I feel like Apple does that once in a while. They'll have a product and everyone's like, no, this is too much.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, we'll work on that.
I guess not recently because they don't really
No,
take many risks anymore. But I compared it to something like a French salon and an ancient Greek Dionysia, I think it's pronounced, which was their annual festival where they performed all the tragedies and sometimes comedies.
Yeah.
They just got all the best playwrights and they all performed it you know, over a few days or something, or maybe a couple nights. So it's something like that, because there's something of a narrative to this and like a cultural regularity. Every September there's the new iPhone.
Yeah.
And it might be like an increment, you know, like what number are we on right now?
11.
Yeah, it might be like the 11S.
Yeah.
Or it might just be the new number, which is when people get most excited.
Yeah.
And every, I think, March or April, there's like a new other
like
stuff.
Software update.
Yeah. And also, yeah, so they're kind of that narrative aspect of it and the artistic aspect of it, as well as mixed with like a world fair or one of those historical kind of science expos, where it's like, oh, look what new elements they discovered. Look at the new, you know, radioactive properties or something. Those used to happen, right?
Yeah, world fairs.
Yeah, that
like,
used to be a thing.
When I started learning about those, I was like really excited. I was like, whoa, I want to go to one of those one day. Then I realized they haven't been happening since like the 50s.
No, I think one happened this year.
Oh, wow.
In Dubai.
In Dubai.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know.
You can't get there, obviously, but
no.
it's probably the best place to have a world fair.
I suppose. It's like also like the Met Gala for fashion.
The Met Gala, yeah.
Yeah.
And also I said mixed with like something like a university lecture, because it's someone on a stage and they're just filling you, they're kind of indoctrinating you, I guess, with Apple propaganda, because every few seconds they're like, we are the best. And then they pause for applause and everybody claps. Like everybody applauds. And I'm like, when I'm sitting in my room watching it, I'm like, why is everyone clapping? But then I know that if I'd be there, I'd be clapping as well. Because I'm like, Apple's so good. And it just fills me with that kind of, it's like a sports team, like a rah-rah, like, let's get excited for Apple. And, oh, that's another thing I want to talk about, the terminology. When people say, I'm an Apple fan, it's like, what are you a fan of? It's not a sports team. It's not a country.
You're not rooting for them. Well, maybe you are rooting for them.
But they are rooting for them. So that's the kind of thing I think we could not do anymore. It's like, let's not be fans of big companies.
Yeah, let's not root for them. Let's just say...
What can we say? Admirer? You know, there are some people that wear like Apple merch. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or Tesla merch. Things like that. And it's because, well, maybe we agree with their values. Maybe we agree with their products. Maybe we think this is a good future for the world and they present good aesthetics. And we're kind of like, quote unquote, Apple fans in that way. But I would never be upset if one of their products did badly. Like, I just don't care. But there are people who would care.
Yeah, and people who buy the new iPhone every time it comes out. I feel like feeding the economics of it is like, but I don't want to feed their will, feed their like...
Sure.
I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, it's kind of messy.
In contrast to the Apple keynotes, we watched a Windows keynote.
Oh my gosh, I wish we hadn't. We watched like
the most cringy.
We watched basically the highlight reel of the Windows 10 announcement event, which happened a few years ago. Just in contrast, it was immediately after watching the concept video for the Apple Park, which came out a few years ago also.
Mm-hmm.
Recommend watching both these on YouTube just to see what good branding is versus bad branding. And Windows 10, objectively, I mean, it had this cool kind of augmented reality breakthrough, and it was showing off some cool technology, but the presentation of it was so shockingly bad. Like, way worse than I thought.
They paused for applause. No one would applaud. Then they would just, like, keep waiting for the applause.
Yeah.
And, like, the thing is, they were, like, giving away free upgrades from, like, Windows 7 and Windows 8 to Windows 10, which is actually pretty cool. Like, if Apple did that, everyone would go wild. If they're like, we give, like, I guess they already give free upgrades, but, you know.
Usually not. You mean for the phones they do, obviously.
For the phones.
But usually for Macs, you have to pay.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everyone would go wild then. They'd be like, sweet, like, I don't have to pay for it for a year. But no one was applauding it, the Windows, because the thing is, with the Windows thing, everyone had these haircuts that were just, like, they all matched. I didn't understand.
Well, that's a good example of Windows design.
Yeah.
It's just so bad.
Yeah.
It's just such a mess. You were talking about consistency. But then on a Windows 10 PC, there are some programs which are kind of retro looking, like typical. Mm-hmm. But then there are some which are all flat and like one bold color. There's a real mix, which is not a good thing.
No.
And some, like, the functions of the PC are also spread out on different programs. Like sound. It's in control panel and it's in settings and it's over there.
Yeah, just consolidate them.
Yeah.
If you want to hook up a new printer, you can do it from
they're just
like 4 different places.
They're not easy to use.
Yeah. Sorry, Windows.
Let's talk about things like when they remove the headphone jack.
Okay.
Did you have anything on that?
I had it in conjunction with when they were trying to, like, make the screens, like, go over the edges and remove the bevel and stuff like that.
You mean other companies or Apple?
No, Apple.
Okay.
So they removed the headphone jack, but at the same time they just started making everything so sleek and minimalist that there's, like, one jack in the computer.
Right.
And it was, their reasoning behind it was that they wanted to make the technology, like, get out of the way.
Yeah, they want to get rid of wires, basically.
Yeah, so
that's the end goal.
Be listening to music and on your phone, but not
tethered
analog.
to it.
Yeah, nothing.
Or getting tangled.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do we think about that? Because we're big fans of analog.
Yeah. I think their thinking is kind of in the right direction, trying to say, let technology take a back seat and just, like, live your life and let it be a tool. So let it help you communicate with people that you can't actually see. Let it be a way of paying for things. Like, let it be your book. Which is, like, kind of along the right thing of saying we don't want people to be, like, immersed in the technology, but, like, it's immersing them further. I don't know exactly what.
I think I have a pair of wireless headphones. It was mostly for working out. I like them. Maybe we'll talk when we do like our product assessment. We can do that next.
Okay.
But what I wanted to talk about with the headphone jack was people talked about it being so anti-consumer because it forces them to buy Bluetooth headphones, and as Apple would prefer AirPods.
Yeah.
So I want to say, is that this kind of anti-consumer arrogance because they know people will buy it anyway, or is it, as they called it, bravery in executing their vision for a wireless future?
I think it's executing their vision.
You don't think it's arrogant or deliberately, forcing people to buy other things?
It's a bit of that, but it's like if you're going to be buying a $1,000 phone that now has no headphone jack, the $100 pair of headphones isn't that much on top.
But the point is, you sound like it's such an Apple shill.
I
think the point is, like, if you're buying a $1,000 phone, people will expect regular headphones to work with it.
Yeah, I guess.
But anyway, Apple won that battle because now a lot of companies have followed suit. A lot of phone companies have followed suit. And like, the thing is that it would have happened anyway.
Yeah.
It would have been the case in 10 years anyway or so, but they just decided to jump the shark so that they could be for once the first on it, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, similarly, I think at some point pretty soon, maybe the iPhones just won't have any
like wireless charging or whatever.
ports. It'll just be wireless charging, and they'll force you to buy one of those, as they did with AirPods.
Yeah. I don't think it's some brave, like, the new frontier kind of thing, but it's just like, I like that they have a vision and they kind of stuck with it, but obviously it sucks for the consumers. It makes it even more exclusive and inaccessible.
I just want to talk about this idea of the ecosystem. Everything Apple puts out works together really well. And other companies try to do that, and they do to some extent, but not so cleanly, because it wasn't the vision from the start.
Yeah.
It's been kind of patched in afterwards. So things like what we were just describing is the mess of different interfaces on Windows. It's just kind of a jumble. Whereas Apple, it's like, okay, if you have the headphones, it connects automatically and things save across devices, and you can pick up where you left off on different devices. And even when you upgrade, it's very, very easy, and intuitively where everything is, like you were saying. And it's because of this sense of, or it creates a sense of exclusivity. And you were saying to me the other day about the iPod Touch, that it was pretty much just released to get kids buying an Apple product.
Yeah, because they kind of seemed like they had an iPhone, because they look the exact same almost.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an entry-level drug, because the tool might not be that strong, the iPod Touch, but it gets them in there, and it makes them want more Apple products, because everything links up so nicely.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Someday when my parents got, like, I had an iPod probably before my parents ever had iPhones, then they were like, how do you know how to use this? And it's like, well, I just...
And it makes you feel special.
Yeah. So it's weird consumer kids.
Yeah.
Thing.
But it's also this thing about, okay, let's say we probably won't have cable TV, right? Let's say you're looking to buy a streaming box because you want a big screen. If you already have an iPhone and maybe a MacBook, you would just get an Apple TV.
Yeah.
Because for things like buying the media, you don't have to do it numerous times. So it kind of forces you into that ecosystem.
No, I agree. And even when I upgrade my phone someday, I'm probably just going to buy an Apple one so I don't have to worry about transferring my contacts my photos and like everything like that. I don't know half my logins because they just
it's all
are
safe
on there. Yeah.
So that is interesting. And it just makes you kind of spend more and more and give more and more money to Apple, which leads to them becoming the first $1 trillion tech company.
That would do it, yeah.
So let's ask the question, is that ethical? I say no. I mean, it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah.
It's like no. And you said earlier, I think you think there can be a big organization whose aim is to bring the good things which Apple claims to want to bring to people without being so profit obsessed, basically not being a company, more of a charity, maybe blending the two, maybe some profit. I'm not really against companies. That would be, I think, quite silly.
Because companies make sense and like markets make sense, but like we were discussing today, like there has to be a line drawn, like some kind of government cap, but like I just don't know where to say. Because like there's this lady who's worked her entire life to start this business, and then it does a restaurant, and then it does so well that everyone's like, you should open another one in the next 10 over, because like we always have to drive in to do it. She's like, okay, like I'll do this franchise, but like she's worked super hard to get there, So you can't say, no, you can't franchise into the next town. But then, like, where do you draw the line when she keeps wanting to franchise and then her kids take over and then it's like...
That's the question.
Yeah.
Well, that was Walmart, I think. It was definitely McDonald's.
McDonald's definitely, yeah.
Apple was a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because the tech companies start out wanting to be huge tech companies. True. So Apple, give away some of that money.
Yeah.
You know, plant some trees, give away some iPhones. What I was thinking was, okay, so when we talk about what's Apple's role in the ideal world, let's get to that. Product obviously is what they do best, and software. But I think a lot of it can be used for development purposes. You know, bring some of that branding and some of that computing to underdeveloped nations.
Yeah, maybe for like education.
Education's a great example, yeah. And don't just, you know, sell them iPads at a cut price. Do something legitimate for the infrastructure.
Yeah, like build a library.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's talk product by product.
Okay.
iPhone. Should they keep that? I say no.
I say no too.
I don't want computers in our pockets.
No.
Similar with the Apple Watch. No.
I would weirdly say keep the Apple Watch because I like listening to music while I run.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I feel like it's the best. Like, I don't want to have an iPhone or an iPod. I think the Apple Watch is kind of...
It's also health focused.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can really... Like, we have that thing against convenience.
Yeah.
But also for the increase of technology. It's like these have really advanced health monitors in them, right? It kind of goes above my head, but it's some pretty high-level stuff.
Yeah, like it tracks your blood pressure, your sleep.
Yeah.
Like...
It was also some heart rate stuff, I think.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
I think Apple Watch is in kind of a different form than they currently are, like a little bit different. I like having the music. I think the health stuff's kind of cool.
I think they could be...
Communication even is like a...
I think they could be weaker.
Yeah, make them weaker.
I don't think they need all the texting, calling stuff.
Yeah.
Or being able to access, like, photos.
No, don't need to access photos. Don't need to access the internet even.
No. Okay.
That's probably it. I don't want to be able to Google, like,
no
how to
portable
spell
internet.
That, exactly.
Yeah.
No portable internet.
No
Keep
Siri.
the internet tethered to the wall.
No Siri, right?
No Siri.
Okay. Good. So yes to Apple Watch, no to iPhone, MacBook.
Are those the laptops?
Yeah. I love the laptops so much. But still I say no.
I say no.
Because we don't want portable internet.
I think we want the two extremes. I think we want the Mac.
Yeah, even bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, in the Windows...
Why is that so funny to me? Make them bigger. You just walk into your home.
Walk into the Apple boardroom, bigger. Point to the watch, smaller.
And
then put all the medium devices, no.
That's how we'd be CEO for a day.
Yeah. Yeah, so all the big things, because in this Windows 10 reveal we were watching, they showed some new hardware, which was this 80-inch 4K wall-mounted PC, probably for boardrooms of I don't know what kind of companies, which you could mark up with a stylus and stuff. And that's neat. Homes could have those for sure. But they just should be in a room attached to the wall or on a desk where no one can take them out.
We've mentioned before we like the computer room.
Yeah.
And you asked me the other day, will our future home have a TV? And I said no, but it will have a cinema. Right,
exactly. No, I love that.
It's just like, I want it to be like, this is where you go if you want to watch, but it's going to be a whole experience.
Yeah, and you have to watch it. Yeah. You know, it's not just passive.
It's not in the background while you're doing your homework.
Mm-hmm.
You're not watching TV as you fall asleep. It's you go there, you do work. I know I fell asleep yesterday while watching a movie. That's because I was tired.
Yeah, I love that. AirPods.
I like your more chunky headphones. I like headphones, but...
Headphones for the watch? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Headphones for the watch.
What, how else are you going to listen to music? Playing it out loud?
Yeah, no.
Apple TV. I say yes. I mean, it's just a streaming box.
Mm.
You need that pretty much for the cinema.
Yeah.
I think that's about it.
Yeah. Do they still like iPods?
Oh yeah, iPods.
I don't think you need those if you have the watch. Which they said, like, when we made the iPhone, we knew the iPod was going to become pretty much
obsolete.
Obsolete, yeah.
Any other devices you would make if you were Apple CEO? There's always rumors that they will get into gaming.
Yeah.
Which they might. I think right now they're really targeting entertainment. You know, Putting a lot of money into Apple TV originals, things like that.
I think they'll get into that market. I think them and Disney in the future world might like merge, but I'd want it to obviously be like a degrown version of the two. But them just kind of be the entertainment, art. You can live this more artful life, integrate music into your life in a more easy way.
That would be fun. I think an Apple-Disney merger would be stronger than every government in the world.
Yes. Have to be. There needs to be stricter government regulations on everything so that they're not like dishing out propaganda or something like that, which I don't think Disney does. But that's another day.
And on that fun note, let's end the episode. Oh, sorry, I want to talk about one more thing.
Okay.
The Apple Store.
Yes.
We were just walking around a strip mall today, and just loving that soulless.
For everyone at home, Aaron and I went this morning to get groceries because we're going to make his family supper tonight.
That soulless
and he
electric
goes,
buzz.
have you ever been into the strip mall?
Yeah.
And I said, no. And then he took me in just to show me the strip mall because he knew I wouldn't like it. So nice.
Yeah, just really long buildings for some reason that are mostly dead.
Yeah.
But the Apple Store is kind of, I wanted to mention that it's like a prototype for what we were talking about with our technology plaza.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this place, and it has this kind of hallowed, sacred feel when you're walking through a mall and you see that white glow.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, what's in there? There's all the geniuses. And they have all the all the new devices, and you just want to touch it all.
I think they would have the like technology plaza in our ideal world. Would be run by Apple, maybe. Not run by Apple, but like
well, definitely contributing.
Inspired by Apple.
At the very least. One thing I wanted to mention, this is sci-fi, but they have the Apple Store.
Yes.
They have the App Store. In our new world, they don't, because we have no apps.
Right.
If we could somehow blend them, so make the Apple Store even more technological and holographic.
So you buy a little cube, like a hollow cube?
I don't know what. I'm just talking about the place.
Okay.
The Tech Plaza. It's like an Apple Store, but there's even more abstract technology.
Okay. Holograms.
Well, yeah.
Pixels in the air.
Yes.
That's what you're picturing?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a purpley glow.
Yes.
Purpley white glow. Okay. I know what you mean.
Good.
I have to get a clip of the action you just did to try and explain it.
I was just holding my hand out in the air, like
Feeling it.
rubbing the air. Hope you all like that episode. Find us on Instagram if you want to. We're at @the_environmental.
Why are we so giggly today?
Listen next week for a cool discussion on an ancient Greek story called Airs, Waters and Places. We're going to be talking about, it's kind of this example of ecological medicine, and we'll be analyzing it in the modern context. So look forward to that, and I hope you all have a great
day.